What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Funcast, episode 27. Our guest today is Scott Mech from the Baltimore Mushroom Company. Thanks for coming on the cast today, brother.
Stoked to be here.
How's it going, man? How's it going?
Going pretty well, yeah. Had a pretty excellent week so far. Great weather, so been a lot of outdoors, checking out flowers, seeing what's popping up in the woods, seeing if any mushrooms are starting to pop up yet. It's kind of early in the season, but with the weather we've been having, soil temperatures are a lot higher, so never know.
I hear that there's been like the first sightings of morels have been seen in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I've been following the Oklahoma fungi little map as they like pop up in each little county. Just it's cool to see.
It's like he's just like farting morel spores or something.
For sure.
Just kidding, man. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thanks, Jacob. Keep traveling, bro, because we need those morels.
For sure.
So have you seen what have you seen growing? I guess currently.
So far, I've seen a couple of oysters here and there. Haven't really seen much of anything else. A couple of smaller mushrooms, I like little brown mushrooms. I have no idea what they are. Taxonomy is not my biggest trait, so like figuring out what those tiny ones are. I mean, I assume a lot of them have like PCR tests or something before you're going to figure out what it is anyway. And I don't have that capability. So, but I'm seeing a lot of just small, tiny things. A couple wood ears here and there.
Nice. I've never got to see wood ears. I think it's kind of like specific as to what kind of mushrooms we have growing down here in Florida, as far as like the gourmets. I want to say there could be wood ears, but I've never seen them. Shit, I've never seen a lion's mane though. So who am I?
Yeah, man, it's pretty cool seeing like the more like tropical varieties of Florida, like Florida has going on, and just seeing that. Like on top of that, you still have chanterelles in certain counties. I'm pretty sure, right? Like you still get a lot of
Yeah,
those.
dude. I actually there's like two local spots for me. There's that I get chanterelles. In Florida, they grow near like sand pines.
Oh, nice, that's fucking dope.
So at least from what I've seen, sand pines, and then I found actually a chanterelle spot like quite literally like 10 feet away from the beach entrance.
Nice, that's fucking awesome. That's pretty cool. Did I see you were trying to culture some chanterelles not too long ago, weren't you?
Yeah, man. I was. I don't think so. That's something I actually have to post on my page, but I don't think it was a success. From just what I've seen, the bags kind of like started growing. I almost think it was like a slime mold that happened to be like the same peach color or something, because after leaving it on the plate for a long time, it's still very peach colored. Um, and it's like, have you ever seen like a slime mold start to fruit? Like it looks kind of
Yeah. Hmm.
like it looks almost like bubbly like that. So um, I think I just got super stoked over a like a really freaking rare like coincidence.
I've tried
But
to
I'd like
culture.
to culture some more. I mean, for the most part, um, you know, I know I have the spots,
Mhm.
but there's a one spot I'd like to. Have you ever found the cinnabar chanterelles before?
Yeah, actually, I see them pop up a lot, but they're like it's usually one here and there, and they're so infrequent. I spent a couple of days collecting them and ended up with like the tiniest little handful after collecting like dozens and dozens of them. But I mean, they're pretty cool.
Is it how's the flavor profile? Would you say there's like much of a difference between the?
So they have a little bit less of like an aromatic profile, and as far as like flavors go, I find chanterelles to be kind of like the aromatics is cool, and it's like a little bit I guess sweeter of a mushroom, but I don't see too much of a difference in taste. And again, that might be like a quantity thing. I had so few of them; it's hard to tell. So
Yeah, I mean, it's always so hard. Like even if you like, it's like a lot of the time. So there's this one spot, the one chanterelle spot that I found by the beach. Serious, like dead ass, filled pretty much between. It was I think two people. It was two people foraging in 15 minutes. Filled like a peppy, like a freaking I don't know, like a basket. You know what I mean? It's honestly the craziest. Uh, amount of chanterelles I've seen in like per square foot. Whereas like the other spot, it takes me like 3 hours to find like maybe a pound.
Yeah, I can't really find too much like quantity around where I'm looking. A fair amount of like the forests surrounding Baltimore are just hyper developed. So if you do find stuff, it's just spotty here and there. But that said, like biodiversity is a lot higher. I see all sorts of mushrooms in a very small area. So, I mean, I think I found like 30 different species within the same quarter-mile stretch of one of our rivers nearby. So it's just wild. And I guess that's all that like combination of like human neglect, letting the environment doing whatever it's doing, and then humans coming in doing like their trail running, walking their dogs, leaving trash all over the place. And you get this weird mix of just like neglect and disturbance that's just, I guess, great for fungus to take advantage of.
I guess like humans being dirty like we are. Realistically, if you throw like a half a whopper into the woods, it's still nutrients, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like most recently, I saw somebody had dumped a whole bunch of pumpkins, and they've just been sitting there. Nothing around there is going to be eating the pumpkins at this point because all the animals have been pushed out. Like deer might come by and browse for a little bit, but I've been looking at those same pumpkins for like 5 months now, and it's just not even like I'm assuming that's going to be like the mushrooms are going to move in as soon as it warms up and start decomposing that because it's literally the only thing in that area.
That's pretty crazy, man. I mean, I guess it'll turn into compost. Could be worse. At least it's not like plastic trash and shit.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for what it's worth, like these are little areas that are just segmented by like suburban sprawl essentially, and nobody really messes with because it's like state park systems and stuff like that. So it's just like I guess it's as good as it could be realistically. Aside from the like insane amount of invasives that are everywhere, it's all right, I guess. I certainly enjoy
Yeah.
the amount of mushrooms I find as a result of it. So
As far as mushrooms, I feel like the Morel Fest, you're going to be a part of that, right? Am I correct?
for sure, yeah.
No,
So
let's talk a little bit about that, man. That sounds exciting.
I spent a good portion of last year just bioprospecting, trying to find as many different local cultivars as I could, and kind of recognizing that a lot of these mushrooms are really easy to cultivate. The majority of saprophytic mushrooms are all cool in that like 50-50 blend of like hardwood and soy hulls or whatever your nitrogen
This
is.
is for
And
people who don't know what saprophytic mushrooms are.
oh,
Um,
so that's mushrooms that basically just decompose like dead wood matter. They're not typically parasitic. They don't kill trees or anything like that. Basically, that like kind of sparked this idea that all of my local mushrooms in my environment that I existed every day could be introduced to the rest of Baltimore if somebody was culturing them, growing them, and getting those cultures out. Then I started looking further into it, seeing like the aspects of land race species that are cultivars that allow you to grow mushrooms a little bit better in your local environments and all these other cool aspects of it. And once I figured out that it was as simple as taking some tissue and putting it on agar and maybe isolating it once or twice if need be, and then you can just expand into your liquid cultures and then go from there all the way through to your fruit mushrooms. I'm like, this is relatively approachable, especially when you consider things like still air boxes and stuff. Like, you don't need a fancy flow hood setup. I see some people using like hydrogen peroxide agar so they can do it in fully contaminated environments and the bacteria still won't show up on their plates. So for Morel Fest, I'm trying to essentially bring all of that experience from last year and do a real quick course to show how simple these types of things are and kind of showcase like how primitive you can get to how technical you can get. So it kind of shows the full spectrum of what you're looking for as far as what you're trying to get into, like what level of mushroom
that's
cultivation you're trying to
awesome,
get into.
dude. That's so important, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
I think a lot of the, sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of
no,
the
you're good.
community is so, hyper focused on the professional, sterile side of things that the natural mushroom side of things is act pushed under the rug, so to speak, right?
Sure.
And with that, it kind of makes mycology way more intimidating for
Yeah, I
somebody
mean,
who's
I
trying to get into it because it
definitely
can be as simple as like taking a few plates out into the friggin' wild and maybe even doing like, who knows, try to do some still air transfers there and then
Mhm.
figure it out, or not still air transfers, or open air transfers in the wild, and then figure it out when you get back to your lab. Like, there's so many different forms of stuff to do. But heck yeah, bro. So that's sick.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked, and I mean, uh, kind of what keyed me into just how approachable this is was last year at Myco Fest actually. Um, Josephine Nakakande talked a lot about the methods they're using to cultivate on pretty much any agricultural waste they can get their hands on. And I'm like, damn, like, yeah, mushrooms really will use anything. And shortly after that, I took one of Will's the extraction class for mycosymbiotics, and they briefly had talked about how you're using. You can
Willing
just
with the
take
yeah.
wet, yeah, exactly. You can take wet cardboard and just put your mushrooms in some wet cardboard, and it'll eventually just start putting some hyphae out there, and then you can clone directly off some just any old wet cardboard. You poured some hot
Yeah,
water on
dude.
to pasteurize. So, like, it could be this technical like flow hood with your still air box, or I mean your like agar and all that kind of stuff, or as simple as just throw it on some wet paper. So I just kind of want to like
It's kind of crazy,
make
you know
sure
what
that
I mean?
people
And that's
understand
like
how
a lot of,
approachable it is.
exactly, man. It's like there's so many different ways to do this. It doesn't have to be just
Mm-hmm.
strictly one way. Like, I mean, that's like when the cardboard method, man, a lot of like I've had a few friends dry clone from that method.
Sure, yeah.
And
Now
it
there's
makes sense. You just put a dry fruit in some moist cardboard, the mycelium's going to come back. It's like basically mushrooms are pretty much like, you know, like what? I guess like they don't die. It's invincible.
yeah.
I don't know.
I was just like
You
reading
just
something about
melt back into mycelium.
there was some science article I was reading that was talking about a mushroom spore they had found that was like 20 million years old, some kind of fossil that they were able to like bring back and fruit at some point in time, and like the spore was still viable, and I'm just like blown away by how resilient that like these organisms are. They really do have this crazy
It's just like
adaptability.
taking a nap.
Yeah, right, exactly. Just sitting there dormant, just waiting for the right time.
Well, it's like, and I've like mentioned this in a lot of the podcast episodes, but like I think like the animals and the plants, as far as the kingdoms are concerned, have been really, focused on a lot. And fungus has its own kingdom. In all
Yep.
of existence, there's three kingdoms. And it's 2024 now, and we're finally starting to like explore the third kingdom. It kind of like blows my mind. Obviously there's been scientific research done in like fungi and fungus, and but for the most part, like as a trending thing, like uh, it's taken so long.
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy to see, especially since like I guess like 2020, the massive explosion that's happened in the interest in mushrooms. Because like my interest in mushrooms first started as a teenager, but I really didn't get into cultivating until maybe like 2 years ago. And just since I started looking into it, it's just more and more momentum and more people joining in, and everyone's having a great time and figuring out all kinds of crazy shit. And I mean, the innovation that I'm seeing happen when like thinking about like what like 15, 20 years ago was like PF Tech or like brown rice cakes. That's all you had. And now there's people growing on damn near everything. Like seeing some of the like ornamental grows, like the reishi, like floral grows and stuff like that. Just the mycelium material. It's
Oh,
crazy.
dude. Some of those reishi artists, I guess you could say, right? Like, um, because like some of those guys where they get like these beautiful porcelain pots and then grow reishi out of like the two openings, which are like one's like an inch and a half, you know, of diameter, and like the other one's like 4 inch diameter, and somehow they get like 20 antlers out of the inch and a half.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like, holy shit, it's so impressive, it's so beautiful, and such an impressive work of art. Like you have to know your conditions, you have to know your growth so well to do something like that.
Now, like I tried to do a little bit of like light manipulation and like CO2 control with my last reishi grow, and ended up with this weird like lumpy pillar that just like, I mean, it's cool looking in its own way, but it is not that like how you like. I think it was a fungi florist has a grow that I saw. It was just a bunch of spirals as all the antlers came up, and it's just insane seeing that level of dedication and like figuring out the details of your lighting and your CO2 to get that performance out of your mushroom.
Dude, it's like the big. It's like a lot of it's the CO2. I think, man, the CO2 levels because reishi fans out when it has more oxygen, and it antlers with less oxygen. So to get reishi to antler, you have to have obviously the culture that antlers well, I'd say, and then just pretty much choke it out. And then it'll like start to grow long antlers because it's reaching for
Get that
something.
oxygen.
But like it's like beautiful when you see these guys and they throw the antler, they do it like choked out, I'd say, for a long time, and then just at the end they hit it with the oxygen, and then it starts to like conk, but at the very top of their grow. And it's like that level of control is that's some next level shit right there.
Yeah, right. And just the seeing some of like just the sheen on some of the, I assume like they're finished with like lacquer or something like that, but like very reminiscent of what I'm seeing in the wild when you see like a nice like beautiful conch that's just sitting there all like in the perfect humidity and whatnot. Like it really is art when they're
Oh yeah.
creating
Have you
these
ever
things.
seen that video of like what Paul Stamets he sprays alcohol in his reishi grow?
No, I haven't.
So yeah, he sprays alcohol in his reishi grow, and it like gives it that look, that that like shine. It almost looks like it like clear coats the reishi and really brings out all of the colors. So shit, I'd recommend even trying that, man.
All right, yeah, I might try that definitely because I'm about to get
I don't
some
know,
like
like, but I don't know how good it is for. I guess, I guess the alcohol it what disappears, it dissipates obviously.
or
So I mean, but I don't know.
yeah, I wonder what the, like if
It's
it's
just
just like
something I thought
halting the
about.
growth
So
and
how
like
long
get
you been foraging, bro?
what was that?
How long have you been foraging?
So really only probably the past like year and a half or so. I spent a lot of time in the woods just looking at stuff and just didn't have the confidence really to like pull anything out. Like I didn't know like what type of damage I'd be doing to the environment. I didn't want to pull anything poisonous that would make me sick. Like I'm also extremely allergic
Yeah,
to poison ivy, so I try to not touch like most bushy looking things because the poison ivy here, like the leaf shape is there's so many variables in that leaf shape that I cannot identify it for my life. So like just I was really skeptical about just going out and picking things straight out of the forest, but these days no, now like through like just a little bit of research identification, I mean a lot of people in the community like really do a good job of explaining what these mushrooms are and what the dangers can be. I mean, I think I just saw Alan Rockefeller did a video recently. I think it was like yesterday actually about one of the amanitas, and it's like, yeah, you need to eat a fair amount of this for it to kill
oh
you,
yeah,
and it's like giving like detailed information like that and kind of exposing people to the actual reality of these mushrooms, like kind of destroying that stigma of the danger of them. Like that's kind of the stuff that helped me step into it as well. So
dude, that's beautiful. I feel you know after learning about mycology and understanding that for the most part you could touch any mushroom and it's not going to hurt you.
yeah.
I don't I actually personally I don't know of any mushroom that like if you pick it and touch it, this is going, now you're going to get sick. It's all about ingesting the mushroom, and then your body starts to digest the neurotoxins, and then
Mm-hmm.
when you start to digest the neurotoxins is when you start to die. So
Yep.
just don't do that.
Yeah, I
You
mean that's why like
know, it's pretty
got to be
simple.
completely 100% on those identifications. Like if you're not completely sure, it's not worth like the risk is never worth that reward.
Exactly. And this is an important, I guess, way to transition into saying to not eat anything like that just because somebody says it's edible online. I think you should always do your due diligence as far as spore prints, properly identifying characteristics of the mushroom, and, just completely making sure that you are eating exactly what you think you're eating, because if it's a lookalike, it could be life or death, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in my area, you get a lot of enoki growing, and several times already, I've seen enoki growing right next to Gallerina, and those are pretty easy to mistake for each other depending on the conditions. But a quick spore print distinguishes the two, and it's something as simple as that can be the difference between getting extremely ill or dying and just having a great meal. So, and like it's I personally find spore printing and everything else associated with the identification process to be pretty fun. Like it's really engaging. Spore prints are always cool looking. Like that's another thing that almost kind of it's like the art of nature essentially. So yeah,
I agree, man. I love sport printing as well. It is the art of nature, and it's it's like functional art, right? I know, a lot of friends who put spore prints on slides, and then they'll take a sterile swab and kind of like, do a little design through the swab. So it's like, if you properly store that is something that you can now use and potentially, germinate in the future. And it also looks cool. It's like
yeah.
Pokemon cards.
I always love seeing how much like creativity there is in the mushroom community. Like seeing people do designed agar with like different types of media so you get different shapes on it, or using like molds so they can pour specific like designs into their agar molds, and just all this extra shit that's just completely unnecessary but really cool. It's always nice to see.
Yeah, man. I think, but that's important because
Yeah,
that's
for
what
sure.
makes it fun and engaging. Like you said, it without all of that experimentation, without those molds, without that, it's just, pouring an agar dish. And I just wanted to say, shout out to being part of the agar club, because everybody's, agar. Uh, uh, um, so yeah, just either at the end of the day, it's all the same thing, but
For sure.
agar rules.
Hell yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's fun. Adding dye to the
Yeah,
plates.
that
It's like,
definitely.
just
And
it'll
like,
add to a little razzle dazzle, a little bit of your, you know, identity to this work, rather than it just being cut and dry microbiology.
yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, like you don't need that sterile environment. You definitely don't want to invite that sterility into your like the culture that you're working with. Essentially, trying to like build and cultivate for yourself as well. So you kind of get. I don't know. I think the kind of fast and loose nature of the entirety of the process is kind of key to keeping that process interesting.
100%. You got to keep on keeping on yourself. It's
For
like
sure. Yeah.
pretty much for anything. It, yeah, I personally, if I get content, is what, if I get comfortable, that's when I stop
Hmm.
arguably progressing, and that's how I get bored. So, if this is something I'm passionate about, and it's not just cultivation, it's not just cultivation of cubensis, it's not just cultivation of lion's mane. Um, this goes down deeper and deeper, and I feel, if you're genuinely passionate about it, there's an infinite amount of things that we can continue to learn. So, but
Yeah.
people say, like, I'm not, I know it all. It's like, no, you don't. Nobody ever knows it all.
I mean, what they said, there's like 5% of mushrooms so far have been discovered or something like that and cataloged. There's just still so much out there that we have no idea about.
That's cool. Like I honestly had no idea, man. That's like a 5%, and I believe it, to be honest. Like how many freaking mushrooms did Alan Rockefeller identify last year alone? Like
Yeah, right.
damn near what, thousands, tens of thousands?
Yeah, and like seeing how small some of those mushrooms are, like they're just not going to be found anytime soon.
No
It's
way. Did
there's going to
you
be a lot of new mushrooms coming up. As like more and more people get interested and start looking at it, it's going to be cool.
did you see the one where like it's the little blue mushroom that's like a microscopic little blue mushroom that they found within the past couple of months, I'd say.
With like tiny little like fuzzy mushroom, like
Yeah, it's like
yeah, I think
super,
so.
super, super small. If I got $1 for everybody for every time I got that mushroom link sent to me when that came out, I'd be a billionaire.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
But it
lot
was
of
it
really
was
cool
cool. It was a
mushrooms.
cute little mushroom, and it's I think that's also something that I'd like even get more into. It doesn't necessarily have to be just about functional mushrooms, right?
No, not at all. I mean, there's just so much out. I mean, we've seen like reishi being one of the more popular medicinal mushrooms. I'm seeing that in conversation more these days about structural material. Like that's just a mushroom we're already aware of with another application. And there's so many other different mushrooms that we don't know like what compounds are in them or like what their structure is like. Maybe they might be good for a different mycomaterial. There's just a whole world out there to be discovered still.
Dude, I mean, reishi is fucking like when you dehydrate an antler of reishi, it's like that is hard.
Yeah, for
That
sure.
is not a soft material. If you were to like, as a human being, I personally, I was like, oh, I can break this, and I was like, I tried breaking it, and it was like a piece of rubber almost. It
Yeah, it's got this
started
weird like
creaking and shit.
rigidity, but it's got this like still like flexibility to it. It's it's a really interesting material, especially like the fact that it can intertwine with other materials. That's I don't know how much that's been explored, like Rishi hybridizing with other substrates and stuff, but there's definitely tons of potential there.
So when you say they were doing, there was studies on possibly being like a building material, is that, just the mycelium itself, or are you talking about the fruiting body?
So I mean, it depends on what kind of like
Because even the
material.
blocks, like the blocks get hard as fuck.
Yeah, for sure. Like they get like they shrink down and get super dense too, and then it's crazy because it's so hard, but it's also weighs absolutely nothing. So it's
Yeah.
just some real interesting material.
All right. You heard it first on Funcast, everybody. Reishi mycelium is the natural carbon fiber. Don't quote me on that.
I mean, it's probably only a matter of time before we see somebody come out with like a mycelium car. So I
Dude, the
believe it,
mycela car,
right? Mushroom car, but
I'd fucking drive it.
100%.
I want it to be if it was. It'd be like cool if it was a Volkswagen, like a Beetles style, but like mushroom. I would take the lack of aerodynamics for like driving a mushroom car for sure.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Just for the novelty alone, it sounds cool.
Um, dude, right? Um, speaking of like just like novelty, right? What are what's your favorite ice cream flavor, brother?
Oh, hmm. That's a good question. Probably some kind of blend of like chocolate and peanut butter. Generally,
Chocolate and peanut
I like
butter.
to
So
mix it
you're
up. Yeah,
like,
I like.
are we going with 2 scoops?
Yeah, probably. Got to
So
get some
two
like
scoops. Are we talking
complexity.
in a cone or a cup?
Waffle cone for sure.
All right. So we got two scoops in a waffle cone, one chocolate, one peanut butter.
Yeah, that
Any
sounds
toppings?
nah.
Dude, that sounds like a solid cone, my brother.
What about yourself?
I'm a big fan of coffee, dude. Java chip. Uh,
Nice.
as a kid, I liked cones a lot, and like if I go to like a Mister Softy or like soft serve place,
Soft
I'll hit a
serve. Yeah.
cone up. But as an adult, big fan of the bowls. I'll even dare to go waffle bowl.
Oh
Two,
damn. Yeah.
dude, two scoops. But like I'll eat all of the flavors. I'm polyflavorous, you could say, man. um, like coffee's the number one go to, but sometimes they have this key lime. And then if I did, key lime pie, I'll usually get like a little cheesecake two scooper. So you add like the cheesecake with the key lime and woo.
That sounds
But
awesome.
I don't know, man. I get pretty scientific when it comes to the flavors of the ice cream.
I mean, yeah. I mean, diversity is the spice of life, right? Got to mix it up.
You damn right, dude. I'm an adult and I'll eat dessert for breakfast because I can. That's why I pay bills.
Oh yeah. I'm waiting for candy cat mushrooms to catch on in the ice cream world.
Candy cat mushrooms. I've heard of those a couple of times. Those ones that like they gummy them.
Yeah, man, they're super super good. It's crazy how much they like how reminiscent of maple syrup they are.
Really?
Yeah.
So the flavor profile is like maple syrup. Have you ever found them?
Nah. I mean, I might have, but I wouldn't be able to ID them. So I think around here we have a different candy cap than out west, but I don't know too much
That's
about it.
something I'm starting to learn about. You know, how like scientific names are kind of like almost dated at this point.
Yeah, I'm finding out a lot of scientific names that were like the Latin that we use here is majority of it is just the same that they're using in Europe, and we just haven't distinguished it for whatever species it is here yet.
Yeah, correct. Like the honey mushrooms.
Yeah, exactly.
I got chewed out on Facebook group. Let me tell you, but whoa, excuse me, Mister Facebook man.
Yeah.
No, I think for the most part, I like the community of mycology and entheogens and gardening is a pretty open, pretty solid community. I think there's going to be elitists in any form
Yeah,
of
definitely
whatever community you're in. So you're just going to have to ignore those people and just
for
keep
sure.
on keeping on.
And I mean, I feel like the overwhelming majority of people that I come into contact with are all like just super positive for the most part. They're always trying to do something good for whatever part of the community they're engaged with, and that's something I haven't seen too often in other communities I've been a part of. Like, I mean, we saw what happened with cannabis is like venture capitalism crept in, and I know the same thing's going to happen to some degree with mushrooms, and seeing that a lot of big money's going to come in just trying to
Of
make as much
course.
money as possible, and it is what it is. But I think that's going to be a really hard journey for a lot of those people just because of how tight this community is with trying to keep with this legitimate culture that everybody's trying to build and be a part of. So
Yeah, man. It is. Uh, it's definitely be a big, I guess, hit of the community, and arguably already is happening. There's already a lot of money coming into this. Big Canna, I've spoken to Big Canna personally, so to speak, and many other people probably have about all of this, and it's just like it is what it is, and it's happening, and there's no way we can stop it. But there is like whatever we're doing, we can like create the proper way, the path it should start going, the direction it should go into, I'd say. um that's all we can really do, right? And we're back. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty and had some internet problems, but we're going to start off from where we left off as far as the vibe of the whole community of mushroom and mycology festivals, right?
Yeah, so just it's a real just cohesive community, and it like everyone I interact with, depending on like it doesn't matter what circles they're a part of, like there's just a really consistent attitude and respect for what everybody's doing. So like I feel like that's going to be a really tough thing for a lot of these more like corporate entities to really get into, just because a lot of these people are very outspoken and involved in their community. So it's not, you can say what you want on the internet, like no individual is going to have corporate power to do as much as they're going to do on the internet, but being engaged directly in your community and talking with those people, that's not something that some person can just step into and purchase essentially. So I think it's
Dude,
going to be a
you're
real
so
good
right.
thing to like the same nefarious forces are coming in that like came into cannabis that they're trying to get into mushrooms as well, but I think they're going to have a much harder time essentially just getting a foothold.
So, I like to think it's like not even necessarily, I don't even want to say like as uh the term, like, or I guess a sense of them trying to get in, right? Because they're going to get in.
Sure.
And that's not even a question. They're already in. Uh, but also, it's all about creating that community. It's all about creating your vibe. Because at the end of the day, a lot of us, you're really only limited to the science that, we know, and or the experimentation that you are doing as a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, yeah, like for instance, brands and creating the community, going to the events. Exactly, it's like there's going to be those people who are there for the people who want it to be a business,
Mm-hmm.
or who are coming to it as a business, as like a just a corporate mindset. And then there's also the people who are here on the hobbyist side of things, but also, like the smaller, the portion of it where we're passionate about our work. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just a job. It's not just an investment to make more money. It's like, we want to fucking see some scientific, progression in this
Yeah,
shit.
exactly. Like pushing that envelope forward and trying to like take that next step. I mean, we're basically the first group of people, like the first generation that has access to these tools and this knowledge to do this. So, like, sky's the limit, really. There's so much you can do, and so much that we don't know what we can do yet. It's gonna be an awesome time just watching this progress as I go through life. It's pretty cool.
So what do you like to do outside of, cultivation and mycology?
So I'm really into plants. I grow a lot of plants. Um, Horticulture is definitely a fun, like it's what I do for work mainly, but it's also a really fun hobby just because there's such a vast amount of interest there. Like you can spend so many lifetimes just going into the different aspects of horticulture or like botany or whatever it is and never have to do the same thing twice. It's just like nothing to get bored with essentially. Like going out in the woods, identifying plants, finding out like what their like niche is in this ecosystem and what their role is and how that plays out, or trying to grow a really difficult plant or a really easy plant, or propagating a ton of the same plant. Like just I find all of that fascinating, and how all of that stuff works is just super cool. So spend a lot of time messing with plants.
Nice, man. Is there like any specific kind of plant that piques your interest, as at least currently as of right now, or?
I mean, so probably like ferns and like ephemeral species are really high on my list. I've grown a fair amount of ferns over the last couple of years, but ephemeral species are somewhat new to me. I've been doing that for past like maybe 2 years, year and a half.
Ephemeral, you said?
Yeah, basically, the first plants to pop up in the season, like Virginia bluebells and trillium and trout lilies, are the ones that pop up in my area. I know there's a lot of trillium
Okay.
that pop up in Florida and stuff like that too, but it's just the very first flowers that pop up in spring, and they generally come up before the canopy fills out in the forest, so they can get like good photosynthesis. And summer comes around, and that's that basically. And they're dormant until the next spring, so they're a little bit more challenging to grow just because they have different conditions than most other plants people grow commercially. So growing that on a large scale has been a pretty fun challenge. And now that I've gotten a good amount of experience under my belt, like it's definitely something I want to continue working with and moving forward with. So
That's really cool, man. Have you ever considered, adding mycelium into that? Possibly doing some stuff with like uh rhizome or mycorrhizal myceliums and chanterelles and stuff, trying to, get that sheath over the root, arguably, right, of mycelium.
yeah, for sure. So last year I found some pink chanterelles, and I've got this tree like marked. I know exactly where it is. And this year I'm going to try and introduce that mycelium to some cultivated beech trees that I've grown from seed from the same area. Essentially, I'm going to like make a slurry and put that into the soil and see if that takes. I'm also going to take like spores, make a multi spore solution, dump that in to see if I can inoculate it with that, and hopefully find a way to like cultivate the pink chanterelles. And I just think it'd be a really cool thing to be able to do to some degree, even if it's not like high yield production. Just to have a tree that I planted that has chanterelles because I brought that in there would be super cool. So
You
definitely trying
know,
to do some stuff like that.
dude, it's kind of crazy. In a previous episode, I was talking, Laughing Jims.
Yeah.
So I was talking to him, and we were talking about the Gymnoplitis uh, dilutus or or I don't. I'm definitely butchering that.
Is that the
Um,
recent one he just grew, the newer one?
yeah, the newest one that was only been, I guess, discovered like or seen 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So he was talking about how he cultivates that, and pretty much was saying like the mycelium is like he just grows it in the ground, and then like digs it out of the ground and puts it in a monotub, and then fruits it in like fruiting
Nice.
conditions.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I definitely think there's a place in the garden for mushrooms. It's kind of actually my next venture is trying to marry the horticulture and the mycoculture thing together in the garden, so I can kind of just use that as a nice model for education and like teaching people like how these things work in different ecosystems. So
It's a really beautiful way of like, yeah, dude, that's cool. And even like teaching people how mycorrhizal systems work, like
yeah,
putting
definitely.
fluorescence, right, and maybe growing some microgreens in the tub while fruiting the mycelium.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the morel grows that I've seen throughout the internet, it looks like there's always some kind of like plant association that's like incorporated into those grows. I always see grass or something like that. So there's definitely something to the idea of those mushrooms being in the environment with like the plants and stuff like that. So,
Obviously, since you're into foraging mushrooms and just plants in general, you must go on hikes. Um, is that do you like go around pretty much just stick around your local area, or you ever been to a memorable place foraging?
yeah. So generally, it's a matter of convenience. I definitely choose a lot of the places that I'm already nearby, and just trying to stay Baltimore centric was important for me, especially last year. But I spent a couple of times, like of course, like at MicroFest last year, I went on the forays around there. Um, I went
Nice. How was
to
MycoFest, man? I've actually never been, but I hear a lot of people talk about it.
so that for me that was my first MicroFest, and it was kind of like my introduction. Like I wanted to engage with the community as like I've now been cultivating mushrooms and doing a lot of stuff for a while. and wanted to really start to connect with everybody and see how I can contribute to that. And like MicroFest was a really good catalyst for that. I met a lot of good people there that I chat with pretty regularly. I mean, just the time I had there was fun as shit too. Like being able to just wander out of a tent at like 11 o'clock at night and it's like, oh, here's Alan Rockefeller leading this UV tour out in the woods for mushrooms that I've never heard of. And it's just like really cool shit the entire time. So
That's cool as
I
fuck,
had a blast.
dude.
Sure.
I'd like to like go to MycoFest, make it out to one of those events for sure. It's on the list, man.
It's definitely a good
Do
thing.
you plan on going to any events this year?
So I'm going, so Morel Fest, I'll be doing the wild mycology workshop there. I'm also looking at doing an ephemeral workshop at MycoFest this year as well. So I'll be teaching how to cultivate on a more commercial scale these ephemeral plants because a lot of people who have like area of like if you're growing mushrooms in your backyard, you have the conditions to grow these plants. And these plants are like something that somebody in a small space could make a decent amount of cash on. So like maybe helping people grow other things, incorporating that with their mushrooms, which will probably play well together, is just a good avenue to kind of introduce more people to plants and mushrooms together. And I just want to continue that like path of introducing people to cultivation because the more people growing, I feel like the better off we're going to be.
For sure, man. If one person, if there's one person on your block, or I guess every how do I even put this? I'm having a brain fart and I'm losing my ability to say words. If each person on your block grew a different vegetable, that's how many vegetables or starches or just a different plant. I guess functional plant are the ephemerals. So is this more like an ornamental thing when you say
So not necessarily like for some of these plants, they're medicinal. For others, like Virginia bluebells as an example, that is in the borage family. That's an edible plant. You could actually forage for that one. And um, things like ramps, that's another good example of a good forageable.
okay, ramps are and ephemerals as well?
Yeah, exactly. So the ramps will pop up, they'll shoot up some leaves, and then if they're mature enough, they'll shoot up a flower early on. But by summer, that heat's just too much for them, so they go dormant. But by then, they've stored enough energy to create more bulblets and just start spreading a little bit. And basically, ephemeral is just talking about how it's got a tight window early in spring where it's usually a couple of months that it's doing its thing, and then it's dormant for the rest of the year. So that's
So I
kind of
guess morels would be ephemeral, right?
I mean, that's honestly, I guess so. I feel like it's applicable. I'm not really sure how those like botany terms transfer to mycology, but seeing as how they were considered plants for so long, I guess yeah, it should be
I
applicable, I
mean, I
suppose.
guess I just saw it as like more of a general term of like um, time, right?
Yeah, for sure. Nah, I mean, and I mean, that said, you could even manipulate that a little bit and possibly like, so you can take ephemerals out of the ground when they're just a little root, refrigerate them, and then later in the fall, you could bring them out. And once that warm weather hits them, they'll pop up then. So you could really, it is a matter of just the conditions that they're exposed to. So definitely could manipulate it a bit.
Did you learn all this just through R&D?
So, no, like, I mean, I guess it's more, I have a lot of people that I've spoken with that know a lot about this kind of stuff. There's a lot of experience from the place that I work that I can draw from. But on top of that, because of the nature of my work and I'm growing so many plants at a time, I get a large amount of experience very quick. So, like, just to put into
Because what
perspective,
did I don't know? Sorry, did I ask like what do you do as a for your job if you don't mind me asking?
so I'm a grower essentially. My title is head grower. I work with a really solid team of people, and essentially all we do is grow plants, and we grow a fair amount of plants. Just in a single greenhouse, I think we have roughly between like 10 and 12,000 plants per greenhouse. So growing plants in a greenhouse like that, like I stand to gain a lot of experience very quick because in a single season I can grow those, 10,000, 12,000 plants. And now I have the experience of growing 12,000 of these plants as opposed to having to do like one or two in my backyard every couple of seasons or something like that. Like
Yeah,
it's a really slow process.
the commercial growth, I get like that's a lot. I have a lot of people who come to me, hey, I've never grown before ever, but I want to do a 1,000 tub grow. How do I do this? It's like, oh man, if only it was that easy. Like, even
Yeah.
if I like spoon fed you everything, little bit of knowledge that you needed to know, it, it's hard, but it's also cool that you have the ability to do that, man. There aren't a lot of people who know how to grow large scale.
Yeah, I mean it's been a good opportunity to learn too, because as like I'm trying to create this new company with this mushroom farm and seeing opportunities of like how I could scale the business and then weighing the options of like what's better, should I stay a small farm or should I link up with other people? And it's given me a lot of insight to really understand like what I was trying to do. Like I initially wanted to do a small farm type model, but now I'm realizing that the collaborating and cooperating with other farms and a larger network of people is absolutely the way to go. And as I'm seeing all these small farms like pop up, I can see the scaling issue that's popping up too, is that, if you have two, three, four shipping containers or like a warehouse that you're building out for fruiting out all your mushrooms, eventually when you decide to upgrade or something like that, or need to expand your production, suddenly you're looking at higher labor costs, or that upgrade for your new air conditioning isn't
Absolutely.
just a couple $100 for a new unit. You have to get 10 new units, so it's going to be a couple thousand, and those costs can be really difficult, especially since even with mushrooms, like it's still agriculture to a degree, and you're going to have some level of seasonality. Like farmers markets are going to come and go, so there's some level of restriction for when you can sell these
As well as
mushrooms.
like equipment,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And like if you have some equipment break at the wrong time of year and you don't have the money to cover it, like these are the type of things that like linking up with other places, you can maybe mitigate some of those issues and not have to worry about it. And as a like starting a small farm, like I'm actually really excited to see like what the trials are going to be of that operation so I can kind of figure out and start like really understanding what I'm going to have to do to combat those issues and actually scale up to a degree where I can maybe me and several other farms around the way can actually compete with this bigger industry that's coming in and just dumping millions of dollars in infrastructure and marketing campaigns and whatnot. Like maybe we can compete with that as opposed to like me being a single entity with my tiny little farm. And it's like, yeah, no, you're not getting into any markets. We already got the Whole Foods covered. We've got all the other markets around here covered. It's just that's really
That's the
hard
goal, man, right?
against. Yeah.
That's the goal. And it sounds like you're freaking determined to get it there as well. But yeah, and I think it's gonna happen with enough hard work and dedication. Anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about putting that time and effort into it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but that's cool, dude. So it's like, what are your goals with that as far as growing? What do you plan to grow to start off with?
So I'm currently working with four varieties. We've got a snow oyster, a lion's mane, an enoki, and a reishi that I've gotten all from around Baltimore that we're going to start working with. And then from there, it's just kind of seeing what people are into. I'm hoping that working with restaurants directly, I can start maybe understanding what kind of food they want to do, and we can maybe cater to their specific needs. So as opposed to being like, "Hey, we have these mushrooms available," it can be more like, "Hey, would you like us to grow this amount of this particular mushroom for this dish you're creating," or something like that. I think having a more intimate connection with these places will be able to provide a much more connected experience to the mushrooms that we're trying to bring out of the forest and into everyone's kitchens and all restaurants around. So
100%. And when you say out of the forest, are you trying to mainly make this a foraged mushroom only company, or is this going to be cultivated as well? Are you going to do indoor
No,
cultivation?
so what I'm trying to do is cultivate the mushrooms that I'm foraging and not really breed those to any particular degree. Like there's definitely some level of, I guess, like pheno hunting to find species that still, or rather cultivars that are still going to play well with cultivation methods. But the idea basically is that our local mushrooms are already here and available to us. I don't need to go out and purchase liquid cultures from somebody who's finding lion's mane out in like Minnesota or something like that. It's already available to me, and that is, it's more so the message that that sends to other people that they can go out and find these things, and this is part of the world that we exist in. It's part of the environment we're a part of. Kind of helps foster that connection to the mushrooms that I'm hoping people can kind of
Yeah, man.
really
It's not just
get.
lion's mane. This is lion's mane from Baltimore.
Mhm. Exactly, like this is
This is
more
from
mushroom.
home. This is that like homey feel. You're about to eat some Thanksgiving lion's mane, fresh off the Douglas fir.
Yeah, man, it's just, I don't know. I think there's some
I don't know.
level
This Douglas fir hardwood.
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know. I
Google
think
that
that's
real quick,
softwood. I don't even know the Douglas fir grows around here. Might be west.
dude. I'm a doofus. Evergreen, but I don't think so.
Yeah, it's
Oh
mostly.
no, it's a freaking pine tree. I'm just kidding, guys. That was fake news. That's really cool though. My bad. Where can we find you, brother? If we're gonna find you on the interwebs.
So you can find me on my personal account at mycosapiens, and we're doing a soft launch next month. But you can find our Instagram now at the Baltimore Mushroom Company on Instagram as well.
Heck yeah! Sorry, I was taking a little swig of some kombucha, trying to get that prebiotics in my system.
Oh yeah, man.
Um, for anybody who's interested, we're also gonna, in every video, I put all of the information of the people in the description, so you can see the website links and other links that may be, uh, you know, attributed to them.
Gotcha.
Speaking of kombucha, man, do you like kombucha? I'm a
Yeah, actually, I
big
had a
fan.
kombucha earlier. It was a elderberry kombucha. It's pretty nice.
Nice. What was it? The GT? What kind of kombucha are we talking about?
I cannot remember. It's from a local company, and the name's completely escaping me right now.
Hell yeah. Who cares? Kombucha's kombucha. It's all fucking bomb, brother.
Oh yeah, man. Love fermented shit. It's great.
Yeah. Do you mess around with fermenting much at all? Is that a
So I used to a bit, and then I stopped. Like cooking became a bit of a soft spot or a sore spot for me for a while because I had a long career as a chef that just was not working out. It was a pain in my ass for the most part, and I just kind of stopped doing it for a while. But now I'm starting to get back into it. I started fermenting some stuff last winter, and now I'm just thinking of all the different ingredients that I know that I can forage now or grow now that I can start fermenting and doing all kinds of different flavor profiles with. It's now I'm stoked.
ding ding ding, my dude? The fucking flavors from the nature are so awesome. I think that's like the coolest thing ever. Just to be able to like go out in nature and be like, yeah, I'm gonna pick some fresh freaking thyme and I don't know. I haven't really done that yet, but I'm talking smoke. But it's possible, everybody.
Mm-hmm. No, man, it's super cool, and just the amount of just edible products out there that with fermentation you can make into a whole different thing is wild. I've been learning a whole lot from this group that I got invited into from Wade Fox. He's dude's like a fermentation genius. It's crazy seeing what these people have been coming up with and just the wild shit that people can do with food when you incorporate some level of like bacteria or fungi or all these other different things. Like it's a whole different complex world with that kind of stuff.
What do like when you say like he's all into the fermentation? Like, what do you Fermentation of what? Are we talking hot sauces for, you know,
So, like generally, I've done a lot of peppers and a lot of different fruits. I'm really big on blueberries. Blueberries make a really good fermented product, but generally, it's a lot of peppers just because they're easy. They keep for a while. I love hot stuff, so I don't eat it nearly enough.
nice, man. And that's like, what do you do? Like in like a quart jar or something? I don't really know too much about fermentation.
I got
That's pretty interesting.
some mason jars with like a little weight that holds everything down. It's got a little like pressure release valve, so like the air that's building up can escape, but nothing can get back into
Like
it.
the mead kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like exactly the same stuff. So
Nice, man. Dude, you're an interesting guy.
yeah, man.
Uh, it's been, uh, friggin' A, it's been really nice talking to you, bud.
Yeah, likewise.
Uh, to wrap things up, I want to ask you, you excited about any, future projects for 2024?
I mean, definitely excited to get some mushrooms in the garden and see how they play with all of the native plants I've been working with. It's That's something I haven't really seen done too much aside from people like taking their spent blocks and putting them out there, but I'm really stoked to start figuring out how outdoor grows work and eventually start replicating some of the stuff that I've seen from overseas with these really large like greenhouse grows that they're essentially the same thing that I'm doing with the plants, and I'm trying to see like how can I start doing that with the mushrooms too, because I don't know, that's just a whole other avenue of production that I think a lot of farms could take advantage of, just having outdoor space to do it. So really excited to start working on that.
Heck yeah, man. I'm super excited to see the progress and the progression that you make throughout the year. I'd love to have you on again, and maybe, in the future we could see what you got going on and how your progress, your projects have progressed.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to come back. Absolutely.
Heck yeah, Scott. I'm going to the ovoid foray with
Yeah, the observational.
the observation one. Are you going to be there?
Yeah,
Well, then I'll see you there as
yeah,
well, because I'm
absolutely.
definitely going to that one.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. I'm excited for that.
Heck yeah, bud. Well, on that note, you have a nice rest of your evening, man. It was great talking to you. Thanks so
Likewise.
much for, you giving me some time for the cast.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. Have a good night.
Absolutely. Catch you later, bud.